So if you have no purpose, college won't matter, right? And oftentimes we wonder, is college a waste? And I hear this conversation all the time. So I'm giving you information so that, you don't have to experience what I experienced, right? I'm making these videos to share with you all the ups and the downs that I've experienced so that you can avoid those. So you can learn a trade better from a specialist. Let's use an attorney as an example. Attorneys are considered specialists, right? They go to school, they have a 4-year degree, and then they go college to learn law, right? I think it's 2 years, whatever. It could be 7 years. Of course, they have to take the bar exam, and then now they're considered an attorney. Now, they're just an attorney. They're a general attorney, and you can pick particular subject, matter. You can become a subject matter expert or pick particular disciplines as an attorney. Maybe you go the criminal route. Maybe you go the intellectual property route. Maybe you become just a legal strategist. But I found that attorneys aren't specialists unless they've worked in a particular discipline, like litigation versus intellectual property versus contract law. There's like all these different disciplines. I've never met an attorney who's a specialist at everything. So you can learn a trade better from the person who has actually specialized in it, who's worked in that particular field for many years. Some litigation attorneys have, 100 cases under their belt versus someone who's graduated from college who has a degree. Maybe they graduated with high honors, but they have no experience under their belt, right? On the other hand, specialists are limited also by their trade. The example I just gave is about the attorney, and they may study a particular discipline in college, right? They specialize in that particular discipline once they graduate from college. Hired a litigation attorney, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? They were the best, white collar criminal specialists, and they were expensive too, right? And this attorney started to realize after about maybe this third month, man, does this attorney know anything about my space? They may know about litigation, but what do they know about my space? And the attorney filed a lawsuit, first of all, in a state we weren't even freaking licensed in. Long story short, the judge kicked it out after a while and sent it to the state where the companies were registered, right? And so the opposing attorney then ran and tried to beat us to it, right? Because, sometimes whoever makes the first step, has the first advantage. And so got kicked out and also got a document, I forget what the term is called, where you're allowed to go into, the courts authorize you to gain access to a particular premise. Litigation attorney who's supposed to be a specialist, right? Because especially according to the amount of money that this attorney charges, didn't even have the address placed on the document itself. So while we're in the office, even though we weren't in there illegally because it was authorized by the courts or the judge, it didn't have the address. So my ex-business partner, who is extremely unethical, had taken our company, our office, used by our resources, and moved everything over to his other company that he started with his vandal friends, right? And because they were stealing the business. So while we're in the office, the police came in because my ex-partner wouldn't communicate with us, but he ran out the office as soon as we turned our heads and called the police, right? Coward type stuff, but it happens. When the police got there, attorney and I spoke to them. Police officer said, hey, what address is this? Because the document had the company name on it, but didn't have the address. And even though the document that we received from the courts had our company name on it, and you can see in the office that our company name was still all over the office, on the computers, on the walls, everywhere, because it was still it was our company. But the police officer, what he doesn't know is what's what. They're not attorneys, right? They're just police officers. The staff that was in the office, because they were on the payroll with this new company that my ex-business partner had started, they were all being paid. And you know how people go, they go with whoever's paying them, right or wrong. And so they were all saying, no, well, we're this company, right? And then my ex-partner also sent another guy out, let's call him a gopher, right? And he's on the payroll as well. So he sent this gopher out to tell the police, you know what? Well, today our office is called this. Even though all around the office it has our company name on it. He said, well, today it's called this, right? And the police officer, he didn't get a chance to ask for the lease documents or anything like that. He just kind of went by what he was hearing from both sides. And on our court document, it said, here's a company name, but it didn't have the address on it, right? Which police officer said, okay, well, guys, I think you've had enough here, even though there's pictures all over the wall that have your name on it. All this stuff is there. And I'm not mentioning the name is because this is such a, litigious environment that we live in today where someone could be dead wrong and easily just, create legal issues, right, to run up your legal bills because that's how the legal system works. And unfortunately, that's how people operate, right? So anyway, let's get back, reel myself back into the topic at hand. And the attorney that hired is a specialist, but doesn't know payments, right? And you can find that in not just the attorney that hired, but other professions as well, where you may have someone, let's say they're a professor in college. This professor in college may be teaching English. They're a specialist in English. If you put them in front of a class that needs to be taught math, he can't help them, right? Or she cannot help them. Same thing with many other disciplines. So as a specialist, they're limited according to that particular discipline, right? But the thing that you and I have to remember is that education is continuous. It is absolutely continuous. You may go to college, you may go to high school, hopefully you go to high school, right? And you may learn a little bit here, you're gonna learn a little bit there. It's continuous. You're gonna always continue learning. And you cannot learn everything in one place. Again, you must continue to learn. Let's say you graduate from high school, right? And you say to yourself, what's next? Some people don't know whether they should go to college or not because there are a lot of people out here booing college and saying that it's a total waste of time and resources. And let's see, maybe in some cases it is, but maybe in some cases it's not, right? And let's say, so you graduate from high school, deciding whether or not to go to college, and you don't have a plan, right? Here's the thing, someone will have a plan for you. Now, so let's say you don't have a plan. That's fine. Many people who graduate from high school don't have a plan. Many people who graduate from college still don't have a plan, and they go and look for jobs where they can actually get training so that they can begin to plan out their careers and futures. Man, blessed is the child or person who knows exactly what they want to do, even while they're in high school, even when they graduate, right? And this is why it's good now in hindsight. My parents didn't know, and I didn't know. You involve your children in as many things as you possibly can so that they can figure out what they like the best, what they gravitate towards the most, right? What they really excel in. And then by the time they get to high school, they're already light years ahead of everyone else. And so let's say you don't have a plan. It's fine. Just start learning something. Get into something. Don't just lay around and chill, right? And don't say, hey, I got another 80 years to go. Get into something. You may fall in love with it, right? And don't get comfortable in that something, but just get into something. And when you get into something, go all the way. I remember a young man who came to work with us in his early 20s, very early 20s. And as he came in, he was into crystals and, woo-woo and this and that and other, which is all good, right? But I was trying to say, hey man, go deeper into what you're in, right? You're in customer service. You don't have to stop at customer service. You can become customer service manager. You can become customer service supervisor. You can become the kind of customer service person who creates customer service operations for many different organizations, not just your organization, but he couldn't see out into the future, right? He didn't have a long-term vision. And he says, nah, I'm not going to be here long. He said that every day, every week, or every time I asked him for 10 years, and he's doing customer service today. But he's really great at it. He's a really good thinker. The only thing he needs to do is now expand that particular skill set that he has, and so that he's not pigeonholed as being a specialist only in one small area, right? Even though you have tech support in a department, sometimes tech support people can be really abrasive or unhuman in their responses. So you can teach them a certain level of customer service. You also have risk analysts and underwriters who are used to communicating with people, and you can teach them a certain level of customer service. With salespeople, right? You salespeople are real easy to sell you something like they're all over you, and then the moment you buy, you don't hear from them again. They don't know what you're talking about because their whole goal is to get paid, right? And salespeople are really, really, really good at overinflating and sometimes exaggerating what is going to happen. Those people need customer service as well. So there's so many different areas that you can go into so that you're not pigeonholed into just customer service, which is answering the phone and taking calls, right? So keep that in mind. It can lead you to something that you absolutely love. I think customer service, it should be the foundation of everything we do because customer service relates to the client experience or the customer experience. And if you don't have great customer service, you don't have a great customer client experience, therefore your product is not going to sell as well and you're not going to be in business long. So go deep into it if you do. When I entered the payment processing space, I never even knew what it was. I had a college degree, but they never spoke about payment processing in college. We have these credit cards, right? But how they work, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. We don't know how banks are involved. We don't know how the credit card organizations are involved. We have no clue how this stuff works. So I went to college for many years and never even freaking knew how this stuff works. I just know that everybody uses it, right? So how does college help you and I in payment process? It kind of doesn't, right? And so does that mean college is a waste? No. Does it mean that college can be useful? Maybe, right? I think that anything you do that enhances your level of thinking and value is not a waste, okay? And so you may be graduating from high school, right? And wondering, is college a waste? Or you may be thinking of going back to school to make yourself more valuable. I remember hearing many years ago that anytime there's like a recession or something like that, the first thing people do is go back to college, right? And even if they're laid off, they get a loan, they live off the loan and go back to college. But is college really absolutely needed, right? And in the payment space, there's so many different areas that you can get into that college may or may not be useful in. Or maybe you're thinking of going back to college to make yourself more valuable in your workplace, right? In the corporate environment. Whenever there's a recession, people go back to school to make themselves more valuable, especially if there's layoffs and things like that. And I always thought to myself, like, how does that work? What do? You get laid off and you just take out a loan to go back to school and you kind of just live off of that loan and go to school, get another degree or another discipline, and then when you finish, hopefully the recession is over and now you have more credentials, I guess, than the next person or your competing comrades for your particular position. Well, I don't know if that's useful or not, but that's what I used to hear. So that goes right into, is college wasteful or not? So let's see how college applies in payments. Now, unfortunately, I've not seen where a college degree is a requirement in payments. Sure, anything you study that helps you think is great. But let's say in the payment space, if you want to be an underwriter, do we look for people who have a college degree? No, because there is no college degree in underwriting. There are certifications that one can get in particular areas of underwriting, not even in the payment space per se, but in particular areas. There are. Maybe you want to be a risk analyst. Is there a college degree for that? No, there isn't. How about to be an operations person? Is there a college degree for that? Not that I've heard of. And it's not something that we look for. How about if you want to be a salesperson in the payments? Is there a college degree for that? No, not that I've heard of. Now, in underwriting, there's something that will distinguish one person from the next, and that is, can they freaking think, right? Do they have the ability to have common sense and think? I've worked with people who have master's degrees who said they do underwriting, they do risk, they do all these different things, and they freaking screwed up the underwriting. I've also worked with people who say they've been managing risk for a long time. They have college degrees, and they screwed up the basic math. They had these freaking ego issues. They gave away a lot of money that they shouldn't have given away. They didn't communicate properly. So it's not just, and this is why I'm saying sometimes a particular specialist can be limited because they are an underwriter and they're not the best, or maybe they're a risk analyst and they're not the best, or maybe they are really good at that, but they're going to be lacking something else, right? Which is that customer service part that we spoke about earlier. If you can bring that into it, that will of course enhance the person, because now you have an underwriter who knows how to see outside of the box, or you have a risk analyst who knows how to see outside of the box. I know many people who work at banks who have all kinds of credentials behind their name. They're not the brightest people, and they go from company to company to company. You can look at their resume and it's like they've worked at freaking 10 companies in 5 years. Why is that? If that person is so good, if they're a specialist, it's because there's something else that's lacking, right? Let's say an operations person. You can go to college all you want to and learn operations if they even have it as a discipline. But when you get into the workspace, you're not going to be able to excel in operations unless you've had absolute experience, like trial and error, and you worked up under someone. Maybe you were in college, you worked up under someone who was head of operations, and now you can see how all these different things work. It's almost like me telling you how delicious this food is, and I send you something that says, man, here's how the food tastes. There's no way you're gonna understand that. You're gonna be like, okay, I get it, but I still you don't know for yourself. You have to actually do operations in order to understand operations. And the same thing with sales, right? Can you really learn sales in school, in college? No. But if you're a great communicator, if you have great customer service skills, or maybe you've been a waiter or a server or something like that, and you're used to talking, communicating, and dealing with people, then absolutely, I think you can become great. And that's what we look for in payments, right? Is you look for people who have skill sets and people who can actually do the work, and or what we like to look for in particular are people who have ethics, right? Because if you have ethics, I think the other things can be trained. If you have a work ethic, again, ethic is still attached to it, meaning that if you're not the kind of person who is just going to say, you know what, I don't know, or I just did the bare minimum. And there's plenty, the majority of people that we come across, unfortunately, are like that. But then you do have those people who say, you know what, I may not get an extra check for this. I may not get this, that, and the other, but I'm going to take it to the next level and go above and beyond because they have a great work ethic, right? And they're also going to be ethical in the work that they do. And this is something that I think is really lacking in the sales field. And we always talk about how great we could be in sales and how much money people can make. But is the work ethics mentioned in sales? It's because, unfortunately, unfortunately, sales is a particular trade. You're a specialist at sales, but you're lacking in ethics, right? Sometimes college, believe it or not, the purpose of college at least is to help a person become well-rounded. So they have an ethics class, and they have a math class, and they have an English class, and they have a literature class, and they have a philosophy class, and they have a history class, and they have an acting class, and they have a sports class, right? And if you give it your best in every single discipline, right, then maybe when you graduate, you become this well-rounded person. That is the purpose. At least that's the understanding that I have of college. Now, can you get that outside of college? Maybe, right? But how many people after they graduate from college even read a book or even, try to educate themselves on something outside of making money directly? It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. Think about that. When we graduate from college, from high school and or college, how many of us will pay to learn something that doesn't directly make us income, right? I'm not talking about going to the bar or the strip club or the restaurant, but how many of us will pay to learn something if it does not make us money? Very rare. How are we going to take a class on how to write a book? Maybe, maybe not, right? We may take it from a specialist, which would be great. Are we going to take a class on how to become a better operator, right? So, and we're talking about taking classes that go deep. Now, I'm not talking about the person who created a course because they took a course or the $500,000 mastermind. I'm not talking about those programs. I'm talking about a program that will actually teach you the nuts and bolts so that you can, information that can be applicable. And that course may only be $5,000, right? It could be a workshop or something like that. But how many of us are willing to do that? And so reeling myself back in, right? We're talking about in payments, if you want to be an underwriter, a risk analyst, a salesperson, operations person, right? College may not help you with that. If the company, or if you need something that directly is about only underwriting, but if you want to be well-rounded, many different disciplines and then you come in the door as an underwriter or a risk analyst or a salesperson or operations person, many different disciplines help to make you a very well-rounded, extremely invaluable person. This is why reading books and things like that I'm trying to do myself so that I can grab a little bit over here, a little bit of over there. Then I'll become this human being that can lead other people. And this is why I'm going to go all the way back to what they call Kemet, right? It's an ancient African Kemet before it became Egypt as we know it today. To be a priest, you had to study for 40 years. 40 years. You have to study astrology, believe it or not, right? Because that can kind of help predict certain things. You had to study mathematics. You had to study science, right? They built pyramids and no one today can reduplicate it or understand the math that they use. How do they even move those things? You see the movies and stuff like that about, slaves moving bricks and stuff like that. Wow, whatever. We're talking about some really high science where they built the pyramid at the exact middle of the earth. That takes a lot of science. The priests had to study music, right? Like music. Why would it be important to study music? Because music creates vibration. And some of the music that is made today doesn't have good vibration, unfortunately, right? The words that are coming out of people's mouths cause destruction. In the Bible, that talks about what a man sows shall he reap. Now that could be in actions, but also words have power. They say the power of the tongue. Sometimes the pen could be mightier than the sword. So the words that are generated in our minds that are put on paper via pen can take someone's house away, can cause someone to be in tons of litigation, which could be more powerful than the sword in that particular moment. So think about that when you're trying to make your decision. Like, what do you want to be? Do you just need a quick discipline so you can go and make money? Then you can learn from a specialist, right? But in the payment space, having the college degree isn't necessarily a requirement, right? Attorneys and doctors, of course, they do require that. And I think you and I will both want a doctor who's operating on us to have the most education. If you had a doctor that was going to perform a surgery on you because he was in the mastermind for surgery, you're probably going to be like, I think I'll bypass on that, right? Or if he took a course on it, you're going to be like, you want someone who has application, right? Who has hopefully worked on some cadavers or dogs, cats, something before they started working on you. And unfortunately, in residency, there's some people who make mistakes because you are the practice. That's why they call it medical practice, right? Or practicing law. And then they have medical malpractice as well. So, but again, you even want that person to be well-rounded because you just don't want some freaking human acting like a robot who's operating on you and not able to communicate and talk with you at the same time or to understand like, hey, what's going on right here, right? And so you need someone who understands a little bit about math, a little bit about science, right? A little bit about English, a little bit about history. All these things combined make this great freaking doctor. And so still the level of expertise of these particular disciplines will all be based on the level of experience that they've hopefully learned from, right? And so in the payment space or in the financial space, you would probably, there's nothing wrong with someone who doesn't have experience, but if you have someone who has experience, their value is going to be way greater than the person who has no experience with a college degree or with a master's degree. Because you can have someone without all of that and they have 10, 15 years experience, meaning they've seen so many different situations and they've dealt with so many situations that hopefully they've learned from, that this person in college is all based on theory. Now, if you have the person with all the college degrees and they have 10, 15 years experience, right? Now they have theory plus application, and that becomes very useful. And they also have many different interactions outside of that culminate, that come together to make this person extremely valuable. So college isn't always a waste, right? Many things can come from it. Lifelong friendships, socialization, all kinds of clubs that you can lead and become a part of, working and collaborating with your peers. People do this today in masterminds, and you can use school as your laboratory, right? Learning how to learn and think is something that you can do in college, right? Today, many people that did not go to college simply don't think, right? They've taken all kinds of courses, but they don't know how to think. Maybe they're wanting to learn how to make a course, but they don't know how to handle fulfillment. They don't know how to handle operations, right? That's a skill set that maybe you can either learn in college or get some of it from college, or at least understand like, oh, that's a thing that we can learn, or you can work with your peers, right? To help build that back office for you. And so we rely on a lot of emotion today. And I think sometimes a basic college education could help lay a foundation. Now, you can also be self-taught and give yourself a strong foundation. At the end of the day, your biggest gains will come from you and what you put into it, right? Whether it be college education or being self-taught. And if I had the choice of learning from a professor that ran a business or a CEO that ran a business, I'd select the CEO, right? Now, if I wanted to learn about philosophy, I'd more than likely choose the professor, right? And sometimes you do have professors who actually ran businesses, and then you have those who are just philosophers, and there's nothing wrong with that. You absolutely need both, because the CEO is going to be too busy working and grinding. He's not going to have time, or she, to study philosophy, which you can apply in business, right? Where you can learn a lot about the world today from philosophy and history. All these different examples are case studies that the CEO may not have had the time to understand, because some CEOs are just grinding straight for the dollar bill, right? So keep that in mind when you are trying to make an assessment on whether college is wasteful or useful to you. Now, if you think this was helpful, hit the like button. If you have questions or ideas that can help, please share them in the comments. And if you want more, hit the subscribe button. This is Khaazra, I'm out.